how small we are in comparison to him. Okay? It shows us that. But it's good that it shows us that, because sometimes people tend to think more highly of themselves than they ought to sometimes. And when people do that, you can get into some serious trouble. I have actually heard people try to say, I am God. But what they're talking about is they're the one with the authority. They're the one with the power dealing with something that is man-made. And they don't understand. That's a bad thing to say, period. Because we know where the power lies. And we know who is truly in charge. We would not have what we have today if not for the Lord. And it takes time to get there, but who brought us this far? God. Who gave you what you got? God. Who made a way? The mind you have right now, who has your mind still held together? God does. Now he can withdraw his hand from us if he wants to, but we don't want him to, because without him, what would we be and where would we be? We know because we have a better understanding of whose we really are. And that God is in control. We have accepted that. We have submitted to that. And we are all under his authority. That means he should say, we should do whatever he tells us to do. Amen? Amen. You can't play with it. I know preachers that have tried to play with it. It's a terrible thing to do. Let's look at these questions though, because here in chapter 3, I mean the things he was talking about, the goats, how they give birth, the bears, can you control when? God knows the timing. Man studies it and says, oh, it's about this long of a gestation period, and then, but man has to base all of that off of observational data. He does not know, and what's more, he cannot control it himself. Okay? God set it to be the way it is. All right? In verse number 3, it says, they bow themselves before God and bring forth their young, and then their labor pains are ended. Now, when he says they, we got to know who they're talking about. Back up one verse to verse 2. He says, do you count the months until they bear their young, or do you know the time they give birth? That doesn't really tell us, does it? Back up one more, and suddenly we see what he's talking about. Do you know when the mountain goats give birth? Do you watch when the doe bears her fawn? God controls these events and and the timing of them, okay? And he knows the timing of them. So we can count months, but again, we're just observing. We don't control the months. We don't control when, and we don't control when, and we don't control when, and we don't control when. It's on God's timetable. God says now. God says now. It was so funny with me and my wife. We were watching TV in the bed one night, and I just bust out laughing. And she's like, what's so funny? And I look at her and I said, God just told me you're pregnant. And she got so excited. So the very next day, she went down to the clinic and got a test. And sure enough, came back. God don't lie. And when we went to have the first ultrasound done, the lady said, do you want to know what you're having? I said, it's a boy. She said, how do you know? I said, God told me. She said, well, God don't lie. It is a boy. They came back, and what was unique about my son, they said, Mr. Henderson, they took me into a different room. They said, we got to tell you something. Okay, what is it? They said, your wife has a 2-vessel cord, not a 3-vessel cord. And I said, and? He said, well, that usually means that there's going to be some type of effect, some type of effect. I said, no, he's going to be fine. God's got this. The devil tried again when he was born. Cord was wrapped around his neck. Doctor said, hold it. Pulled the cord over his head. Told my wife, go ahead. And my son was there. And the most amazing thing was we all had to be quiet. because we could not make a sound to wake him up yet. They let me cut the cord, they whisked him away. I went with him, I want to see what they were doing. But what had happened, and sometimes happens, he had a bowel movement right before the birth, and so they had to suction out the lungs and everything. And I'm thinking he hadn't said nothing yet, he ain't breathed yet. And then they turned him over and they rubbed his back, and oh boy, he started crying. And that was the greatest sound I could hear. And I could feel something. I couldn't see it, but I felt something flowing out of my body into his. Now my daughter, God didn't tell me. And when she was born, I think everybody in that ward, the birthing ward, knew somebody had a baby. That girl got some lungs on her. And to this day, she can really, really scream.
Whatever it says.
But it goes the way God says it goes. He can tell you everything right before, or he can say, you know what, I'm not telling you nothing, I'm just going to let it happen. That's how God is. We're talking about animals, and we don't even know about that. But it's still, God tells it when. God says now. God controls all of this stuff. Think of the mind God must have, because he doesn't miss a thing. How many humans are there in the world today? Don't even bother trying to count, but we know it's a lot of us. And yet he knows every single one. He knows the number of our days. He knows where we all are right now. He knows the number of hairs on your head. He knows. If one falls out, he knows which one fell out. That's the knowledge of God. What can we, I don't know how many hairs I got on my head. I ain't got as many as I used to have on my head. You see what I'm saying though? Our minds, even the brightest minds of men, are infinitesimal compared to the mind of God and what all he knows. And I think God is showing this to Job. And as we read through this, if we look at this, we're going to see it's going to be like God is getting like this, and we're getting like this. Because we're seeing the awesomeness of God in the midst of questions that you and I don't have answers to. But we know God made it that way. Okay? So there with verse number 3, they bow themselves, they bring forth their young ones, they cast out their sorrows. He's talking about that which is involved in giving birth. Ladies, you're familiar, you've had children, right? You know what they're talking about. And he even described how labor would be for the woman, the pain she would experience, and how afterward the pain is forgotten for the joy that comes. I mean, it's amazing to me. My wife made sure I was there for him to be born. I went to all the classes with her so I know what to do when things are going on. And she's breathing, and I'm doing the coaching just like they had taught me to do the coaching and everything. Same thing with my daughter. And as a matter of fact, with my daughter, since I've been through it one time, I was telling her everything that was going to happen next. And the midwife that was there to do the birth, she said, well, gee, I ain't got to do nothing. I said, fine, don't send me a bill. She said, no, you're going to get a bill. But I was doing what she was supposed to be doing before she could do it. Because I had the experience. I listened, I learned, and it's like, okay, here we go with this again. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's going to be like this. This is this. I'm just going through everything, and she's just sitting there looking at me like, listen at him. Like he know what he doing. But if I had said something wrong, she would have corrected. She was there. You know what I'm saying? They bow themselves before God and bring forth their young, and then their labor pains are ended. Verse number 4. Their young ones are in good liking. They grow up with corn. They go forth and return not unto them. With some species of animals, and you've seen it, like, I've seen it because my daddy loved the National Geographic Channel. So we always had to watch the National Geographic Channel. But I like with the lions and the prides and all of that stuff, and you would see the same thing happen. The male lions, oh, no. Can't be too many male lions. Now it's changed. They'll have 2 sometimes now. But I've not yet seen the pride with 3 male lions in it. And the young males get run off when they get too big. You got to go find your own pride. Because this is my pride. And they have to go. And they live as wanderers until they're able to conquer another full-grown lion and take that lion's pride. And now that pride becomes theirs. And if you've ever watched it, the first thing they do is kill all the baby lions. All the young ones. They kill every last one. Male, female, everything.
That's true. Yeah.
Because they have to assert their authority as the pride leader. And if they're going to be kids, they're going to be that leader's kids. Nobody else's. Aren't you glad humans aren't like that? Well, we ain't supposed to be like you. You got some crazy folk out here. But why is it that way? God set it up that way. That's why it's that way. And you can say, well, it's harsh, it's hard, it's wrong, I don't like it. That's fine. You don't have to like it, but it's still going to go the way God said it's going to go. End of story. Okay? Their young grow strong without man's care. No man has to intervene. And they leave to never return. So if you want to see that in example, all you got to do is watch the National Geographic Channel. You'll see it all over there when they're talking about that. I love the meerkats too. I think my dog looks like a meerkat. I tease my wife about it all the time. She tries to get me about it, but hey, verse number 5. Who hath sent out the wild ass free? Or who hath loosed the bands of the wild ass? Now when we're talking about that, we're talking about a donkey, okay? One that's in the wild, untamed by man. All right? So the question is, who let the wild donkey go free? God did. Who untied his ropes? As far as we knew, he never had ropes. God willed it so that this animal would be this way. Okay? A man can trap and tame certain creatures, but he cannot give them freedom with subordination to fixed laws. Hear what I'm saying? A man can capture a wild animal. He's going to have a tough time taming a wild animal. Horses, for example, wild horses, we say they have to be broken. Once they're broken, then man can control it, right? But you set it free. If you set the wild animal free, you cannot give it laws that it will obey. Your laws that it will obey. Look, I'm going to let you go. Here's a wild animal. I'm going to let you go. But when I whistle, I want you to come back to me. You let it go, you can whistle till you're blue in the face. That animal is not coming back to you. It's not going to return because that's not how it works for us. That animal was not made to be domesticated. Now we got dogs, turn them loose, throw a stick and run, fish stick, come back. You know why? We feed them. We take care of them. And they have learned that, hey, okay, you can teach me some commands. Sit, walk. My wife was so amazed. She went on a walk with me with our dog. Now when she's walking, I know where they're at, anywhere in the neighborhood, because all I hear, because my dog feels I have to protect her. So if another dog comes, she's at the end of the leash, charging and everything, and I see my wife trying to hold her back and everything. But when I walk with her, she don't bark. She stays by my side. If another dog's coming, I stop, I say, sit. She sits down. They walk by. She don't bark. She don't do nothing. Because she knows I'm in charge. I protect her. I defend her. She doesn't defend me. And my wife is going, she don't do that with me when I'm walking. And I told her, we watch Dog Whisperer. You're missing it. When you open the door, she runs out the door barking. She's letting everyone know, my master's coming out now and you better not come this way. And that's how the walk goes. But when I go out the door, I say sit. I step out the door first. I get my walking stick. I say, come on. She comes out the door, gets in front. I say, sit. She sits. I close the door, lock it. I say, let's go. She walks with us. I take command before we leave the house. So now my wife, sit, 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 sit. But she's gotten it now. She doesn't have to say it as many times. And she'll sit down. My wife will go out the door first. And she'll come out, she'll tell us, she'll sit down. She'll get the walking stick, and they'll go for a walk. And the dog has learned to obey her. But now sometimes she forgets. My wife opens the door, she runs out. Yeah. I said, get her back in here. Pull her back in, start over. She closes the door. No, ma'am, sit down. Dog sits down, she opens the door, she steps. I said, that's how you do it. Don't let her get away with anything, because she will forget. Now, let me ask you this. How does God teach us? He doesn't sit. Don't you move until I say you can move. That's not how he talks to us, is it?
No.
But sometimes he does tell us, sit down. Let me, I've got the battle. And what do? No, I ain't sitting there. I'm going to get in the way. No. And he'll let you. But when you're done, now he's got to deal with you too. And we learned the hard way. It was better to have sat out and let him handle it his way than for us to try to do it our way, because we'd have made a big mess of things. We'd have said something that we wasn't supposed to say. And now they done gone to another person. I told you such, and then I heard it from so-and-so. Because they were screaming and yelling at me, and they told me what I told you. And it just gets worse from then on. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
We're smarter than the animals, but we're no better in obeying our master. Because we have a good one who loves us, cares for us, will not harm us, protects us, provides for us. Look at all that God does for us. And then what do? Don't do that. Don't ever do that again. I'm sorry. That's just how we are. Oh, Lord. One day we're going to get it right? In the kingdom of heaven when we get there. Lord have mercy. He says in verse 6, whose house I have made the wilderness. He's still talking about the wild animal, the donkey. Whose house I have made the wilderness, and the barren land his dwellings. God made that and made him to dwell there. That's what he's saying. He's the one who caused the wild donkey to live in the wilderness and to dwell on barren lands. At that time, it was like salt flats where the donkey would dwell. One would think that if the wild donkey dwelled on barren land, then how shall it eat? It is God who provides for them that they might flourish according to his will. We are the same way. God provides for us that we might flourish, but we won't flourish unless he wants us to. You can try all you want to flourish and nothing happens, nothing seems to work if that's not what God wants. You can try all you want to. It's not going to happen until God says so. And it only will happen if that's his will. I want to see the church grow. All of of us want to see the church grow. We got plenty good room. Where are the people going to come from? Y'all, there's enough people all around us to fill this place. Well, how are we going to get them here? God knows how to get them here. But we have to be ready to receive them here. And we're not ready. You know how I know? Word comes back to me of things some people say to visiting folk, and they say they'll never come to this church again.
That's right.
Because people have said certain things to them. Even have one to tell a visitor, we don't want you here. But then when we get in church, turn around, oh, I love the Lord. Some pastors, you don't know them. I know them. They cause trouble everywhere they go. So did we. We weren't saved all our lives. We caused trouble sometime where we went. Or we may not have caused it, but we sure got caught up in it. I didn't start it. That don't matter. It didn't matter, my dad. I don't care that you didn't start it. You were there. Daddy, I didn't get in it. You were there. You shouldn't have even been there. So I knew. When you see messing, bye. And were you there? I had already left. All right, you better not have been a part of it. And I'm going. But you know, that carried on for me. Went to college. I used to love to go to the Greek shows. I loved to watch the talent. But when the fight started, I was the first one out the door and gone. Wow. Because that's not what it was meant to be. But look what people turned it into. And all it takes is one bad apple to spoil the whole bunch. Lord have mercy. My. Verse 7 says, he scorneth the multitude of the city, neither regardeth he the crying of the driver. Oh, that's interesting. God laughs at the commotion within the city, because there they have tried to tame the wild donkey, and God cannot even hear the cries of the one trying to drive the donkey to produce for them. Here's a donkey. He looks good. He looks strong. Let's take him. Well, I'm going to make money with him. Hook him up to the plow. Come on. Pull. He's a wild animal. He's fighting. He doesn't want to be harnessed. He doesn't want to move. Hook up a goad. We know what a goad is, right? Put it to make him move. Make him move. He's starting to stop. Keep moving. Because we figured we're going to teach him. Okay, what if God put a goad on us? And every time we wouldn't do what he wanted us to do, he jabbed us with the point of it. Something to think about it. And this is Job. Why is God asking Job all these questions? He's going somewhere with Job. Because remember, Job was even questioning God. Why am I in this situation? I know what I've done. I have not done anything to deserve to be where I am. What I've lost and have all this calamity. And they, his friends, surely you've sinned or done something. You're not as righteous as you think you are, Job. Job, you always thought you was a goody-goody two-shoe. And you know what? I'm so glad, because, man, you used to make me sick, all that stuff you talk about. But guess what? You one of us now. The devil was trying to, don't ever forget this in Job, the devil was trying to get him to turn and curse God. That's the whole motive behind this book. We saw it at the beginning, how Job was blessed and prosperous, and then one day the angels came before God and Satan was there, and he said, where have you been, roaming to and fro the earth, seeking whom I may devour? Have you considered my servant Job? It would make you say, God, why did you offer me up? An upright man that fears God and resists evil. What is it? If you didn't have your hand of protection around him, I could get him too. Very well, try. Didn't work. He came back and wanted permission to go further. God said, very well, but you can't kill him. God still sets the limits. And he took him to where he felt like he was going to die. He put so-called friends there to tempt him and push him. And the whole motivation behind them, and you have to understand this, it wasn't God speaking through them. It was the devil trying to get them to push Job to the point where Job would curse God. Just so he could win a contest with God. And God already knew, you're not going to win. I know Job. I made Job. But Job got so down. And all these people are expounding their earthly wisdom until God has to come down and show them that their earthly wisdom isn't wisdom at all. This is wisdom. God has questions that makes their wisdom look pretty small. Pretty small. It's like me saying, I know how to start a fire. What else can you do? I know how to start a fire. You know what people tell me? Go sit down somewhere. Because you're not really helping us until we need a fire. Where's that one that said he could start a fire? We need a fire. Now come start a fire. I start a fire. Now go somewhere. Because you can't do nothing else to help us. You see what I'm saying? Even in the church, there are things that we can do that God gave us the ability to do. And it's not that, well, I can only be involved in one ministry. That's not what we're saying, because he gives the gifts. The Holy Spirit gives gifts, the Bible says, severally as he wills, which means to some he gives one, to some he gives more than one. And you see people who work in more than one ministry. But the point is, nobody can sit down and say, God didn't give me nothing. Severally as he wills. You got at least one from him. And he wants you to take that gift, exercise that gift, and be a blessing to the house where he has placed you, that family. Because in that body, that part is needed. If you had to pick a part of your body to give up, you would try to pick something that's insignificant that you know the body can live without. You know what, God, you can have my appendix. I know people can live without their appendix. You can take my appendix, you know. And okay, but what if I gotta lose a finger? Hold on, let's get a little bit personal there now. Which arm would you give him? None. I want both of mine. You see what I'm saying? Yes. We have to understand that in the body of Christ, no matter how big or how small, every part is important and plays a role in that body. Right. So we should never ever belittle one another or say, you know what, you hardly ever hear because you don't do nothing when you hear, you just hear. Say that to your appendix. There are organs that are so vital to us, and they're small, but they're still vital to the body. Yeah. So what you gonna do? Try my best to take care of everything God has given me to the best of my ability. That's all we can do, y'all. God is the one that puts all this thing. He laughs at the commotion within the city where they tried to tame the wild donkey. Okay, verse number 8. The range of the mountains is his pasture, and he searcheth every green thing. God gave him that for a pasture. You ever seen a mountain go? Amazing. that they can stand on the tiniest of ledges off the side of a mountain. And they're just as sure-footed, and they can leap from that. Now, if you had to go stand on that ledge, Lord have mercy, I'm going to fall. I'm going to fall. Oh, move this way. I'm not moving. Because we're scared. We're too scared to move. But he made for it a place where he wanted it to dwell. That makes man look in awe. Look at this creature. That's what we'll say. It's amazing what he does. No, what's amazing is what God created him to do. That's what's really amazing. Okay? He says in verse number 9, oh, and this is where it really gets good for me. Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee or abide by thy crib? Now, when we see the word unicorn, what's the first thing that comes to mind? That creature like a horse with one horn sticking off his head, right? A mythical being, but that's not what he's talking about here. Okay? Well then, okay, Pastor, what is he talking about here? Let me read a little bit further. I'm going to take verses 9 and 10. Will the unicorn be willing to serve thee or abide by thy crib? Canst thou bind the unicorn with his band in the furrow? Or will he harrow the valleys after thee? And that gives you some clues about a unicorn. Okay? There in verses 9 and 10, we have that term, unicorn, but it's not a reference to the mythical creature of fairy tales or modern merriment imagined by mankind. This is my notes I'm reading from. It is a reference to a wild bull, or what we now know as a wild ox. And sometimes in the Bible, it also can refer to a rhinoceros. Consider the contrast in mentioning taming it or using it for plowing. Now the ox is a very strong animal. It's almost as if God built it for plowing. The muscle structure he gave to it. Okay? My brother has told me one time, he said, man, have you ever ate buffalo ribs? I said, no, I never ate buffalo ribs. He said, you got to try it. And I'm like, huh? He said, it's the best. He said, I smoked some and man, they are unbelievably good and unbelievably tender. He said, you got to try it. So I went down to the local meat market. You got any buffalo ribs? Huh? That's how they looked at me. I said, buffalo ribs. If you don't have any, can you get some? Man, them things expensive. I called back, boy, you didn't tell me how much them things cost. Good Lord. I ain't spending that much money on some ribs. I said, you rich? I'll come home to Texas. You cook something and I'll try it there. But anybody will tell you with the stronger animals, if, for example, I'm just using this example, because of the muscle structure, it's a much tougher piece of meat to cook if you were going to try to prepare it. So you have to do different things to make it where, yeah, such as marinating, you cook it a different way to break the collagen down in the muscles so that it is a tender shoe. Okay? You ever watch Barbecue Pitmaster? That's real good. But that's how you would do that if that's something you wanted. But it was made that way for a purpose. But think about this. The ox is wild. It has to be tamed too. You capture one, Lord have mercy, how you going to tame this thing? Because it's going to fight against you at first. It wants to be free. It wants to go back to what it was accustomed to. Now let me divert for a moment. You know, we were like the wild ox at one point in our lives. We got saved. And after we got saved, it was just great. And we tried to go back to the lifestyle we had right before we got saved. And we discovered something. What is this I feel? Why? Now it feels wrong. Yeah, your conscience is away. It's a lie. Conviction, something you didn't really experience before. Now there's conviction. And God starts telling you, don't do that no more. That doesn't honor me. Turn away from that. I want you to follow me. I'm talking about when you first start your walk with God. And you begin to realize how you were living and how he wants you to live now. And there are people who fight it. Yes, there are. They fight it. But they're going to lose that battle. Because they said, I want to confess Christ. I want to be saved. And you were dead serious when you said it. God knew it because he was looking at your heart. He wasn't listening to your words. He was looking at your heart because it had already happened in the heart. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he, right? Out of the heart flow the issues of life. Guess what? When you say, I want to accept Christ, it's already happened in here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be saved. That's right. It's already happened. And then it comes out. And you confess with your mouth, you believe with your heart, your name is written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Great. Thank you, Jesus. I'm so glad. But you cannot go back to where you were before then. Because if you do, it's not going to be comfortable anymore. It's going to be just the worst feeling. And you will discover that if I walk with him, I feel great. But if I try to go back to what I was doing, this don't feel good no more. And I know some folks I've talked, what's wrong with me? You got saved. And he's working to change your heart, your life, your whole walk. Instead of walking in the darkness, now you got to walk in the light. But what if I don't want to walk in that too late? He got his hands on you now. You are his. Fight if you want to fight, but I'm going to tell you what, you are going to lose that battle. And it won't be until you accept it and start walking. But what you thought was fun before, man, you ain't had fun yet. Go with him and watch how much fun you're going to have. And you'll never feel guilty about the fun you have when you follow him. It's exciting and it's better than anything else you used to do. And I know something. Well, I don't know about all that, man. I used to. It's better. That's right. And they find out it is better. Now see, I can look across here and I know every single one of you know it's better because you wouldn't be here if you didn't think it was better. You wouldn't take the time for this?
That's right. Yes, sir. You're right. You're right.
That's how God is. And what do you think he's really trying to get Job to understand? Job, this is how I am. You may not understand why you're going through this. We can look at it and say, God, it's because Satan. But it was also God's will for Job to go through it. Because he who began a good work in you is faithful. He will see it through to completion. That's why you hear me say sometimes, we're all a work in progress. We're not finished yet. We still got rough edges that he's going to work on and smooth out. But we are a work in progress. We're not what we used to be, thank God. But we're not yet what we ought to be. And one of the telltale signs for me, and you might have experienced this too, I love sitting down and talking to the elderly who have matured well in Christ. Their words are like honey from a honeycomb. And you can go to them and talk to them about a problem and they'll just, baby, don't worry about that. Put it in God's hands. I'm telling you, he'll handle it. But we want him to handle it now. How do I get him to do it? Baby, don't worry about it. God will take care of it in time. Trust him. I love those kinds of conversations. The wisdom that they share and the gentleness of their spirit. And it makes me say, Lord, I hope and pray. If you let me live to that age too, I pray the spirit you've given me is just as gentle and kind and loving and wise as theirs. They have aged so well. But not everybody don't do that. Some of them get a pretty honoring when they get old. Oh, they be cussing. I remember I had to go talk to Dr. Tyner one time and about someone, and Dr. Tyner when I told him, man, that person, I ain't never been cussed out like that person cussed me out. And I didn't even know that person had once been a member of his. And we talked and we conversed and everything, but even he couldn't solve the problem at hand. And then finally, God solved the problem for us. And we were able to get done what needed to be done. But it wasn't until, you know what, let's go to prayer together in this. Because we were searching for someone and nobody could find them. And God, and next thing you know, phone rang, and it was the person we were looking for. We were able to get matters resolved. God did it. When we turned it over to Him. Lesson, if we had turned it over to Him just to begin with, we might not have went through all of this that we had to go through. Yeah. So, if I'm going to learn, I need to work at turning it over to Him sooner. Now, sometimes He ain't going to do everything. God, I'm thirsty. Can you give me a glass of water? No. He gave you water. It's right there. You can get up and go get it. You see what I'm saying? We can't get ridiculous with Him. There's some things we have to do. Just like, God, I want you to take care of this sin problem for me. He says, fine, I'll do it. But this is what I want you to do first. Give it up for me. What do you mean give it up for you? I want you to help me to just get it. All you got to do is speak the word and it's gone. I want you to give it up for me. I remember I had a problem one time and it was like, God, I don't know how to do it. God said, you got to confess it. God, I ain't going to confess it. I ain't going to say it. No, if you want it to stop, you have to go confess it. And so I went to go confess it. But the whole time I'm going to confess, I'm praying, God, you got to be there. God, you got to show. God, you got to help me. God, and then I had to confess it. And God did what He told me He would do. He made everything all right. But if I had not confessed it, the situation would have continued on. And something much worse could have ended up happening. But it wasn't until I obeyed. In other words, you've got to obey Him. He's going to bless you. He's going to do it. But sometimes He'll tell you, for me, you do this part, I'll take care of the rest. Because we have to grow. We were the wild animal out in the wilderness of sin.
Yeah.
And He brought us in.
Yes.
That'll preach right about this. He brought us in. And He put a harness on us, a yoke about our neck. Take my yoke upon you, He said. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And what if you ain't yoking me up? No, you don't put no yoke on my neck. Click up, it's on. And what do? Just like the wild animal does. We buck, try to get out of it until finally we are broken.
Yep.
And we learn that after we are broken, He can take it off. And we just need to obey Him. If we get complete, He can put it back on. Good, I ain't got no preachers here. I might use that one day. Now, let's look at some more of this, y'all, because this is good. I told y'all when we got here, my mind was just blowing. So He's saying, will it be willing to serve thee? Will it abide by thy crib? Can I bind the unicorn with his band in the furrow? Or will he harrow the valleys after thee? We know He's talking about the ox, right? Consider the contrast mentioned when taming it or using it for plowing. Will he stay by your crib at night? This is Isaiah chapter 1, verse 3. The ox knoweth his owner, and the ass or the donkey his master's crib. But Israel doth not know, my people doth not consider. That is a profound verse. That is just profound. That blows my mind when I read that, went back and read that. Because the first time we read it, we didn't get that out of it. Now we go back and read it. Look what comes out of this thing. The ox knows his owner. The one that has been tamed, mastered, he knows his master. Even the donkey, the wild donkey, knows his master's crib, knows where home is. But his children, God's children he made, do not know. My people do not consider.
Pastor, give me that chapter again, Isaiah 1.
Chapter 1, verse 3. And then when we look at verse 10, the bands which were used to control the ox. Canst thou bind the unicorn, the ox, with his band in the furrow? The bands that were used to control an ox were oft times back then affixed to its horns, because they're trying to pull it to turn, pull to keep it straight, right? But the animal's chief strength lies in its head and in its shoulders. So to try and bind it this way and control its turning in the field when plowing was very difficult for man to do. Will the ox plow behind you? Okay, you're going to get in front. Come on. Come on. Follow me. That ox ain't going to move. He's going to look at you. Probably think, well, we ought to hook this up to you. You move. Will it be obedient to you? Will it be willing to follow you as opposed to being goaded to go before you? It's a sad thing when we have to be goaded to move. God has to prick us with a stick to move. Oh. Come on, get moving. It's a sad thing for us that he has to do that just to get us to move. Because to not move is to not obey, and it's to say, I don't like where I'm going, where I'm headed, the direction we're taking. Oh boy. Am I ringing some bells? I don't like the way the church is going. If God is guiding, why are you worried? It's the smooth way this way. We going up the rocky path. We can go up the smooth path. But we don't know when the smooth path gets real steep, there ain't nothing to grab a hold to keep going up. And all we're going to do is slide back down and we're stuck. But on the rocky path, there are rocks that you can step on and continue going up. Amen. Yeah, it might be a little more difficult, so it seems initially, but in the end, you achieve the goal. God knows what he's doing. Well, how do we know he ain't leading us wrong? God will get you back on the right track. You just got to trust him. Who among us, among mankind, gets everything right in life? For all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. What does that mean? That means we get so much wrong. Oh, this is an easy decision. I like this one. And God says, you were supposed to choose that one. And so he gives us the one we chose, the one we like. And when we end up not liking it, and we realize, you know what, that one would have been better for me. Now we're going to choose this one. And now we progress. Well, why did he allow me to choose the one that wouldn't? Because you would have never learned. Had you not chosen the wrong one, you would not have learned what the right one was. Because if you chose this one, you said, well, you know what? I wonder what would have happened if I had chosen that one. So sometimes it's to teach us, to help us to grow, because he took that responsibility on. He will perfect that which he has begun in us. We won't see its perfection until we appear before him. That's why I say we are all a work in progress. We're just at different places along the path. You're not at the same spot I'm at. I'm not saying, oh, I'm above. No. You could be above me in so many areas. I tried my best, believe you me. I don't want to preach. Lost that. I don't want to pastor no church. That's not for me. That's not who I am. I lost that. Some folks say you're good at it. Some folks say you shouldn't have been there. That's the key. What did God say?
That's it.
All I know is this. Right now, I'm where I'm supposed to be because he sent me. He told me, arise and go. When I said, God, should I go to Morning Star or should I not go and stay where I'm? He said, arise and go. Those were the 3 words he spoke. And okay. First Sunday in February, here's my 30-day notice. Y'all hadn't voted, once I hadn't voted nothing on me. And then when it came back, you voted, you the pastor, when can you start? When do you need to start? Can you start March 1st? I can. Well, don't you have to give the church a notice? I already have. I did it on the 1st of the month. Because God told me I was going there. It's different when you walk by faith, not by sight. I could have said, well, I got to hear first, so I hand in my resignation. But that's where my faith would have been. But faith said, I hear you, God. Here's my resignation. My 5 pharaohs were happy. He leaving! Yes, he leaving! We get our church back. We get our church. As soon as I was gone, they seized everything except the church wouldn't give up one thing, and that was the checkbook. And I was glad of that because they were stealing money from the church, and I showed it to the church. I proved it to the church. That was one reason why they hated me after that. But it was wrong. It was wrong. They were stealing church money. Going out to eat at the church's expense. Who approved that? They did. They got the checkbook. Not no more. Checkbook came out of hand, got it out their hand. And boy, after that, ooh, Lord, it was rough for me. It was rough. I put it to y'all this way. It was so bad that when I got here, my first challenge, I just fell out laughing. And I said, God, if this is the best they got, thank you for my first challenge. Thank you. And I'm dead serious when I say that. I thanked him. But I had to go through that to prepare me for where he wanted me to be. You see what I'm saying? And if you talk to any preacher, they're going to tell you the truth. Almost every pastor will tell you their first church experience, oh God, they caught it. But they realized afterwards that was the blessing. Because when they got where they are now, that taught them how to be where they are. And y'all know me. I don't put my hands on the money of the church. Now, I'm not a thief. I don't have to take a big. I was taught not to. Keep your hands out the money. That's one less place for the devil to come after. That's true. I don't write checks. I don't count money. I don't make deposits. Nothing. The only thing I get is what the church said. We want you to give it to him, and we want you to give it to him this way. And that's what the church does. That's the only thing I get. Even though I'm the pastor of the church. I want it that way. Because if something go wrong, the church can't look at me as pastor stole it. Pastor, I can't get to the book. I don't have nothing like that. Then I'll be like, yeah, it was Joan. She did. It was Eve. Get Eve. Eve on right over. Get Eve. Lord have mercy. We know I'm going to have fun. I'm just playing. She ain't done it. Joan is excellent, y'all. Joan is excellent at what she does. Excellent. I love the people God has given us here at Morning Star. Every last member of this church. I love them. We've been through some times, but guess what? God brought us through those times. And he had a reason for those times. And the wild that would not be tamed, he took care of it for us. And the rest of us, we were once wild, but we've been tamed by the Lord. And if I had to pick a master, I'd rather have Jesus than anything else or anyone else be my master. Because I know he loves me. I know he has proven it Way back at Calvary. Y'all ready to shout? I'm going to have to stop there. We're going to pick up at verse 11 next time. Continue talking about this ox, or the unicorn, as they say. I just like to have fun, y'all, and teaching. I've had some people, they want me to go and teach at other places and stuff like that. And other people tell me, man, you need to be teaching. I'm looking at it like, look, I got enough on my plate as it is. Amen. All right, let me stop this recording thing.